In 2010, FIFA announced that the 2022 World Cup would be held in Qatar, a country the size of Connecticut, a country with no football culture to speak of, a country where summer temperatures regularly hit 50 degrees Celsius, a country that, at the time of the announcement, had almost none of the infrastructure a World Cup requires. What followed was the most expensive sporting event in human history, a $220 billion construction project built in the desert by workers who didn't choose to be there for a tournament that lasted exactly 1 month. Qatar is a peninsula. It juts into the Persian Gulf from the northeastern corner of the Arabian Peninsula, and most of it is flat, sandy, and extraordinarily hot. Before oil was discovered in the mid-20th century, it was one of the poorest places on Earth. After oil, and more importantly, after natural gas, it became one of the richest. That wealth is what made the World Cup possible. That wealth is also what made it so complicated. The stadiums themselves are genuinely extraordinary. The Lusail iconic stadium, which hosted the final, was designed to resemble a traditional Arabian vessel, its golden lattice facade catching the desert light in a way that is hard to argue with aesthetically. It holds 89,000 people and cost somewhere in the region of $700 million to build. It is, by almost any measure, one of the most beautiful football stadiums ever constructed. Qatar built 8 stadiums for the tournament. All 8 are within a roughly 70-kilometer radius of Doha, meaning fans could theoretically watch a match in one stadium, take a metro, and watch another match in a different stadium on the same day. It was a logistical achievement that no previous World Cup had managed. It was also, critics argued, a solution to a problem that could have been avoided by simply choosing a different host country. The human cost is where the conversation gets genuinely difficult. Qatar's World Cup infrastructure was built almost entirely by migrant workers, men from Nepal, India, Bangladesh, the Philippines, and elsewhere who came to Qatar under a system called kafala, which tied their legal status to their employer. Under kafala, workers couldn't change jobs or leave the country without their employer's permission. Human rights organizations documented widespread abuse, withheld wages, confiscated passports, dangerous working conditions. The Guardian reported in 2021 that over 6,500 migrant workers had died in Qatar since the country won the hosting bid in 2010. Qatar disputed that figure, arguing that the number included deaths from natural causes and was not specific to World Cup construction. The true number of construction-related deaths remains contested. What is not contested is that the conditions were dangerous, that the kafala system enabled exploitation, and that reform came slowly and partially under significant international pressure. And then the tournament happened, and it was, on the pitch, a remarkable World Cup. Argentina won their 3rd title in the final against France, a match that is already being called one of the greatest in the tournament's history. The football was extraordinary. The stadiums were full. The organization was, by most accounts, excellent. For 1 month, Qatar delivered exactly what it promised. Qatar had an answer to the legacy question, at least for some of its venues. Stadium 974, named for Qatar's international dialing code and the number of shipping containers used in its construction, was designed to be fully dismantled after the tournament. It was taken apart. The materials were repurposed. The site was cleared. It was, in theory, the most honest solution any World Cup host had ever offered. If you can't use it, don't keep it. Lusail City was built from scratch to host the World Cup final and serve as a model for Qatar's future. It has luxury apartments, a marina, a tram system, shopping malls, and the largest stadium in the country. It also has, by most accounts, very few actual residents. Journalists who visited after the tournament described wide, empty boulevards, closed shops, and an atmosphere more like a film set than a functioning city. Qatar has plans for Lusail. Whether those plans materialize is a different question. The Al Bayt Stadium was designed to resemble a traditional Bedouin tent, the Bayt al-Sha'ar that Qatari nomads used for centuries. From the outside, it's genuinely striking, a massive structure that somehow manages to feel connected to the landscape around it. After the World Cup, Qatar announced that the upper tier, roughly half the seating capacity, would be removed and donated to countries with a developing football infrastructure. It was a gesture. Whether it was sufficient is debatable. $220 billion. That number requires some context. Russia spent approximately $11 billion on the 2018 World Cup. Brazil spent around $15 billion in 2014. Qatar spent more than both of those combined, multiplied by 7. Most of that money didn't go to stadiums. It went to roads, airports, hotels, a metro system, and the construction of entirely new cities. Whether Qatar needed a World Cup to build those things, or whether the World Cup was the excuse, depends on who you ask. 2 days before the tournament began, Qatar reversed its decision to allow alcohol sales inside stadium perimeters. It was a late change that surprised FIFA and frustrated fans who had planned accordingly. It was also, in a broader sense, a preview of the tension that ran through the entire tournament between Qatar's vision of how the event should look and feel and the expectations that come with hosting a global sporting event. That tension never fully resolved. It just got absorbed into the spectacle. The final was played on December 18th, 2022. Argentina beat France on penalties after a 3-3 draw, a match so extraordinary that it temporarily made everything else irrelevant. For those 90 minutes and the 30 minutes of extra time, the debate about how the tournament had come to exist faded. What remained was just football at its absolute highest level, in a stadium that cost more to build than most countries spend on health care in a year. December 19th. The teams flew home. The fans dispersed. The journalists filed their final pieces, and Qatar was left with 8 stadiums, a new metro system, several unfinished cities, and the same question that South Africa faced in 2010 and Brazil faced in 2014. Now what? The difference is that Qatar has the money to answer that question differently. Whether money alone is sufficient to solve a legacy problem is something the next decade will reveal. Qatar's stated plan is to integrate the stadiums into broader urban development projects. The area around Lusail is meant to become a fully functioning city district. The Education City Stadium is surrounded by university campuses and research facilities that were already there before the World Cup. Some venues will host the Asian Games and other major tournaments. On paper, the legacy plan is more coherent than most previous hosts have managed. The question, as always, is execution. Under sustained international pressure, Qatar did implement some reforms. The kafala system was modified to allow workers to change employers more freely. A minimum wage was introduced for the first time. Some workers received compensation for unpaid wages through a newly established fund. Labor rights organizations acknowledged the changes, while noting they fell short of what was needed and came too late for those already harmed. Reform under pressure is still reform. It is also a reminder of what it took to get there. The most expensive World Cup in history happened. The football was extraordinary. The stadiums were beautiful. The cost, financial, human, environmental, was staggering. Qatar got what it wanted, a moment on the global stage, a demonstration that it could organize something the world had never seen before. Whether that moment was worth $220 billion and the lives of the workers who built it is not a question football can answer. It's a question the rest of us are still sitting with. The stadiums are still there. The desert was always there. And somewhere in between, a month of football happened that the world will be arguing about for a very long time.